Okay, so today we're going to show you how to sew on a button. So I bought this shirt a few weeks ago and I've worn it once, and the first time I wore it 2 buttons fell off. So luckily it comes with a spare button, so generally most shirts with buttons will come with a spare button attached to the tag when you first buy it. And then luckily I found the button that fell off while I was wearing it. So the things that you'll need are some hand sewing needles. So I like ones with quite large eyes in them because, well, my eyes aren't great anymore. So, the bigger the eye, the easier it is to thread the needle. So you'll only need one needle. You'll need, of course, the buttons that you're going to sew on. These ones have come with a shirt, as I said, but if not, there's plenty of buttons available at shops like Spotlight, Lincraft, shops like that. You'll also need some matching thread. Now I always use Gutermann thread. The one I use is a polyester thread, so it's 100% polyester. Comes in a lot of different colours, so you can always seem to find the colour that you want. What I like about this one is that it doesn't tangle. So a lot of threads, particularly if they're 100% cotton, can tangle quite easily as you're sewing with them. It's also very strong as well, so it doesn't break while you're sewing with it. So that's why I always use the Gutermann. And of course you need some scissors. So the sharper the better. I always think, invest in a good pair of scissors. These particular ones I got from Spotlight. So I think they're about $27 or something, but they're absolutely perfect. I've had them now for about 12 months. They don't go blunt, or they haven't gone blunt on me yet. So yeah, really good investment. So let's get started. The first thing you'll need to do obviously is thread your needle. So I've used about 1-meter long piece of thread and I've threaded it onto my needle. Now there's a bit of a trick in starting a knot. So basically the way I always start a knot is I pull the thread between, and I'm not sure if you can really see it there, I pull the thread between my thumb and my pointer finger. Then what I do is I take my needle and I put my needle on top of the thread. Then I use my needle to wrap around, the thread to wrap around my needle about 6 times. And I don't do it too tight because you'll need to pull the rest of the thread through. So then what I do is I hold where I've wrapped it around, I hold the thread between my finger and my thumb, and I pull the needle through, and I just keep pulling it through slowly until the end of it forms a knot. And there you go. Don't know if you can see that. And there's the knot it's formed. Now don't worry about the end of the cotton, you can always cut that off later. So for now we've got the knot, we're ready to start going. So let me just get rid of a few things here. Move my cotton and my needles out of the way. So the way you always start is you need to know where you're going to sew the button on. So here I can still see the indents from where the original buttons were sewn on, so I'm just going to sew them on in exactly the same places. If you can't see that anymore, then you're going to need to measure. And so the best thing to do is measure the space between the existing buttons and then measure where you need to put the new button on. But I'm just going to start here where I've got one that's ready to be sewn on here. So the way I start is that I would just do a couple of little stitches just to anchor the thread here. Again, don't worry about the little bit of thread that's left over, we can fix that up later. So just a couple of little anchor stitches. Okay, once you've done that, get your button, and this one's got only 2 holes in it. Some buttons have got 4 holes in. With the ones that have got 4 holes, you can decide whether you want to sew it from hole to hole or in a cross pattern. Okay, this one's only got 2, so put your needle through one of the holes and take it down to the fabric. Okay, hold it in place, and you can see the rest of my buttons here are sewn so that the thread goes from the top to the bottom, so from the top of the garment to the bottom of the garment. So make sure you're lining up your holes so that they go from the top to the bottom of the garment. Okay, then simply put the needle back through the button and the fabric and pull it through the back of the garment. Okay, that's your first stitch. Okay, again, make sure the button is turned around. And then you just continue to sew up through the first hole, down through the second hole, and I would normally do that maybe about 10 times. I do have a little bit of a knot in the back of my sewing. Don't worry about that. Really, you're not going to see it when you're wearing it, so it's all good. If you're a perfectionist, you could undo it and start again. I'm not that much of a perfectionist. Okay, so I'm going to make this my last one. Okay, so once the button is well anchored to the fabric, then what you need to do is take your needle through the last hole, but don't take it through to the back of the thread. So basically just pull the needle up through the button, between the button and the fabric. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wind the thread around the base of the button. And do that about 5 times. And what that does is it just strengthens the sewing a little bit more to make the button more stable. Then take the needle and take it back through to the back of the garment. Okay, then what you need to do is take it to the back and then a couple more little anchor stitches, and if you like you can sort of thread this little bit of a loose one through as well. A couple of little anchor stitches just at the back just to finish it off. And then I like to do another knot. Now the way I do that is that I leave my needle through the threads and I take the cotton and I wind it again about 5 or 6 times around the needle, not too tight. Push it down to the base so your knot ends up right at the base. Hold it between your thumb and your first finger and pull the needle through. That will then create a knot right at the base. Okay, so you've now knotted it off. What I like to do then is take the needle and just thread it through between the layers of fabric. Okay, so you can see where I've threaded it through here, but on the other side you can't see where the needle's coming out. And then push it through, pull it, and then what I would do is I would take my scissors, I'd pull this just a little bit and then snip it off at the base, being careful not to cut the fabric. And then the end of the thread ends up inside the fabric, so you can't actually see the end of the thread. Okay, so then we've just got this little tail of cotton here at the beginning to cut off, and simply cut it off just close to where the button is. Not too close that it's going to unravel the knot, just cut it off there. Okay, and the rest of the tail of that cotton is then between the button and the fabric. Okay, and that's it. You've sewn on a button. Pretty easy to do. Yeah, that's it. If you want to check out more how-tos, just go onto my blog, www.nanainyourpocket.com. Thanks, bye.